Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me? Good? Okay. It feels a little bit different up here. It is just an honor to be here this evening, and can I just say, in person. I think it will be months and months that we need to relish the moments of seeing each other and seeing a full face and being able to identify the enthusiasm and excitement about students and about the work that we do. How we have missed this in this last 18 months, and what a treasure it is to be here. Credo has been around for about 25 years in partnerships with a lot of state and a lot of national organizations as well. And I just have to say that Bob and Karen, the team, Michigan Colleges Alliance is one of those that we really look to, who are leading the way in thinking about moving ahead in partnerships. Partnerships has been a big word for me in the work that I've been doing at Credo, in thinking about how can we get the campus really centered around student success. And part of the reason I fell in love with our author and with our keynote speaker this evening is that when you speak with him for just 30 seconds, listen or read the book, it's students at the center of his conversation, always, and his thought. And that's such a treasure to be a part of. And so this evening, Dr. Aoun will come in just a few moments, and he's going to spend some time here at the podium and share a little bit about Robot Proof, about the book, about the work, about the theory and the framework, and of course you wouldn't be surprised that he's also going to spend a little bit of time updating you on what he's been thinking about since C19, and how those two things might be linked or connected, what it's really driving him toward. And then he and I will have a chance to sit in these comfy chairs on the stage and do a bit of dialogue back and forth with each other and ask some questions as well, and I'm really looking forward to that. In fact, it was about 3 years ago, after one of the roundtables had finished, maybe 4, Karen, I can't quite remember, and we were on a call with Bob and Karen, and Emma Jones, my colleague, and I were on the call, and Bob said, well, what do you think about upcoming keynote addresses? And I raised a book that was dog-eared and highlighted and said, you ought to try to get this guy. And so I don't take all the credit for this evening. There's certainly been a lot of work in that regard. But when you're looking for someone who has the ability to cast a vision and then execute on that vision, and it's always in service to students, then this is the author and this is the voice you would like to hear. So you've read his bio, and you know that he's been a leader in higher education policy and internationally for many, many years. He's been in the classroom. I just want to remind everyone in here who has been in the classroom how important it is to have that passion kept alive by interaction with students. He's a respected voice on global and experiential education. He came to Northeastern from the University of Southern California, and he doesn't hold that against me since I graduated from UCLA. We've laughed about that a little bit. He received his PhD in linguistics and philosophy from MIT, and of course so many accolades along the way, both here in the United States and abroad, for his foresight, for his thinking, as he considers where we're headed. And one of the things I've come to appreciate about him so much that you'll hear this evening is there's not one bit of fear in his voice about what lies ahead. Instead, in his writing and in his strategy and in the way he imagines the future, it's all about opportunity and what we can do and what we can become. And I am so looking forward to hearing more from him this evening. So would you help me welcome Dr. Joseph Aoun.
Thank you. Good evening. One more time. Good evening. So there's a change. I'm not going to talk about AI. Bob has asked me to talk about the evolution of horses over the years. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to ask you also some tough questions, Bob, because you're responsible. I know nothing about horses. I love horses, but I know nothing about that. So let me go back to, I have been asked to talk a little bit about what I have done in the book, and afterwards, during the question and answers and a dialogue with Joretta and all of you, I will share some thinking post COVID-19 and the impact of COVID-19 on this reflection and on us all in higher education. Let me start by mentioning also, Bob, that actually your board chair has been very generous because you flew us in a private plane, and so we didn't need the horses today. So thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. So let me start with a simple statement that we all know that AI and intelligent systems and tech, et cetera, are changing the world of work. And you're going to have many discussions about that. But various economists are projecting that up to 50% of the jobs we know will disappear or change dramatically in the next 20 years. As a matter of fact, it's happening as we speak. You all know that. Now, economists are never in agreement with each other. So they will say, no, it's going to be 20% or 30 or 40. It doesn't matter. It's changing dramatically. So if this is the case, if robots are depending, the work situation, if artificial intelligence is changing the way we look at work, and many jobs are disappearing and others are being redefined, what is the purpose of education? The purpose of education is to help us become robot-proof. And robot-proof is a lifelong journey. Yes, it starts very early on, but I'm going to concentrate on colleges and universities. So how do you become robot-proof? You become robot-proof in a simple way, by understanding machines and understanding yourself. Understanding what machines can do and what they cannot do, and understanding where they are better than us. But how do we do it in a curricular setting? We do it in a curricular setting by saying that every student has to master what I call humanics, what we call humanics. Humanics is the integration of three literacies: a tech literacy, a data literacy, and a human literacy. So every student finishing her or his or their education with a BA or BS degree need to master humanics. They need to understand machines and how to interact with machines. That's a tech literacy. They need to understand the product of these machines. That's a data literacy. And they need to understand the human literacy. The human literacy is what we humans can do that machines for the foreseeable future cannot emulate. What are they? What are these characteristics? The ability to be entrepreneurial, the ability to be innovative, to be creative, to look people in the eye and understand their body language. Are they following me? Are they happy with what I'm saying? The ability to work with each other in teams. The ability to be culturally agile, to understand that people are coming from different horizons, different approaches, and so on and so forth. The ability to be global, to understand people across cultures, across boundaries, geographic boundaries, etc. So the first tenet is humanics. Integrate three literacies. Integration is key. I'll come back to that later on during the questions and answers. But our curricula should integrate the three. The second point, in the interest of being very brief, is that we all know that we can spend hours reading all the books about creativity and innovation, about entrepreneurship, about teamwork, and about cultural agility. It doesn't make us culturally agile. It doesn't make us creative or entrepreneurial. So we need to live that. And how do we live that? Through experiential education. Essentially, where the students live in a real-world setting. They go on experiential learning, co-ops for 6 months, up to 6 months. It can be 4 months, it can be 5 months, it doesn't matter. Where they are really embedded in companies, in not-for-profits, in government agencies. And they understand how to be in a real-world setting. They are getting the knowledge that they brought with them, but they are refining it, they are questioning it. But more importantly, they start to understand what they are good at. They start to understand what others are good at. They start to understand how to work in teams in a diverse environment, and hopefully in an inclusive environment. And they start seeing the gaps. Many of the students, when they come back, they say, look, I didn't see that happening, and they can launch something, a startup, or they can launch a not-for-profit. So, but there is another aspect that is important about experiential. What I said so far is very simple. Understand what machines do and focus on what we humans do that machines cannot duplicate. But through experiential education, through experiential exercise, the students can practice what we call far transfer. I know that we have psychologists here. What is far transfer? Far transfer is something that we humans do very well, that machines are not good at. We take a knowledge that we have and we project it and apply it and refine it in a very, very different context. I can give you many examples. Let me focus on one that I love to discuss. We had a student on co-op, those long-term internships, in a not-for-profit in Bosnia when there was a war. And she was a student of English literature. And during her co-op there were snipers. And the snipers were used to send fake news saying this bridge or this street are safe. And people got shot at, they got killed. So she devised a program that will allow her and allow the NGO that she worked with to debunk those fake news immediately and to tell people don't follow that. So when I asked her, well, how did you manage that? She said it's very simple. What I did, I'm a student of English literature. English literature is teaching us to deconstruct a text. I deconstructed the discourse of these fake news, and I was able to debunk it and help the NGO and help people, the citizens. That's a phenomenon of far transfer. We do it, machines cannot do far transfer. So what I said so far is very simple. I said two things. Humanics will allow you to understand machines and understand ourselves, and at the same time, practice it in a real-world setting because that will give us an edge over machines. We can stop here and go have our dinner, but there is one more thing. Machines do not stay still. They get better. They get more refined, more powerful, and they will displace more jobs. So we have news for each other. We all become obsolete constantly, correct? So we need lifelong learning. So that's our opportunity in higher education, because the non-traditional lifelong learners now in the United States are 74% of the learners, which means that we cannot concentrate only on the 18 to 22. They are essential. Let me repeat it, they are essential. But they need us throughout their lives. And if we don't do it, then there is an enormous gap. And this gap has been met somewhat by the for-profits, sometimes in a felicitous way and more often in a non-felicitous way. So what I'm saying is that universities and colleges need to embrace lifelong learning. That's our opportunity, especially that our population is aging. So the number of undergraduate students is going to shrink every year. But on the other hand, the number of lifelong learners is increasing. You say that's easy. I am going to embrace lifelong learning. I'm going to build programs and they will come. It doesn't happen this way. People will not go back to your college, to your university, to our college, our university. We have to go to them. And we have to do it in such a way that is based on their needs and based on the needs of the employer. And that's a humbling experience for us in higher education. Because usually what we do, we build them, and they'll come. Whereas here, it's very different. We have to go, we have to listen to the needs. Let me give you an example. It's a real example. We have a network at Northeastern of campuses that for lifelong learners in Seattle, Silicon Valley, Charlotte, in Toronto, Vancouver, and London. When we started in Silicon Valley and Seattle, the tech industry said, we don't have a pipeline for talent in computer science. Could you create a pipeline? So how can we create a pipeline for talent? So we started working with them, and we devised programs where we take people who are in the workplace who studied history, physics, chemistry, economics, English, biology, etc. They're already in the workplace, and then we work with them to get them ready. They are embedded in the company, and they're reinventing themselves. They are in the company is paying them, and while it's happening, it takes 18, 24, 16, 12 months because it's customized and personalized, and we help them become computer scientists. This has been very successful. We didn't know whether we would be succeeding. We were worried. It was very successful to the point that it allowed women and underrepresented minorities to get into the tech field. And you know the tech field values that tremendously. So we received support from Melinda Gates, from Google, from Facebook, and others to work with other universities to get them to do something like that. Why am I mentioning this example? This example worked. I can give you other examples that didn't work. But the point is, humility is key. When you start lifelong learning, you have to customize to the employer and personalize to the learner. And that's something we don't know how to do very well. And so we learn how to do it by being in touch with the reality and the demand. So let me summarize what I said here in order to start the dialogue. I said that becoming robot-proof is a lifelong journey. For us, it starts in college and never ends. They need us all their lives. That's where the opportunity is. You are the third largest university, Bob, you told me, correct? You have an enormous opportunity to team up together, not only here, but with other places. You know, because we have Ohio, we have Nebraska, and we have other alliances here. That's an enormous opportunity to be present to our alumni wherever they are and whenever they need us. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Aoun. I have heard you speak before, and I found myself forgetting that I was supposed to come up here just now because you sort of lean into the storytelling, the nature of that, and it's really special to hear it brought to life in this regard.
Thank you.
So I am so excited that you gave us a little bit of a taste of measurement of success. And I know you've been asked this before, but there's a lot of effort, a lot of work from you, from people who are leading at Northeastern and around the world. And I'd love to hear about some of the success and how you're measuring that. Are employers saying, boy, this really does make the difference, this experience? I'd love to hear some things about success.
So whenever we start doing something, you know, we, first of all, at the lifelong learning level, and now we are trying to do it across the curriculum at all levels, Giorgetta, it has to be modular, it has to be stackable, and it has to be competency-based. So what is competency-based? You all know that you have a clear sense of what the outcomes are. But the difference is that you don't determine the outcome by yourselves. We don't determine the outcome by ourselves. We have to understand what the employers need. I can tell you we have a lot of work with employers. And for instance, let me pick an example, the digital transformation. We have worked now, we have an agreement with PwC where all their accountants are going to move into digital literacy by working with us worldwide. We are not going to determine what digital literacy is by ourselves. We are going to understand what the needs are, and then our curricula will be built to provide this. So the measure of success has to start from the beginning, where you understand the real outcomes, going back to what you said, and saying, are we achieving these outcomes? And the companies and the employers and the learners will hold you accountable for that, because you state that at the beginning, at the get-go. And you state it for each certificate, because the notion of degree is going to be appended to.
Thinking about one of the things from the enrollment management vantage point is always how clearly are we fulfilling the promises that the enrollment office is making, right? How much have we really executed on what that client or customer really expects? Yeah, in that measurement side. Are the students themselves reflecting back on some of that pedagogy and some of that experience and saying, that's what's making me different in the workplace? How do they talk about it?
The students, first of all, are in some ways are at the center, as you said in your introduction, at the center because when they live it, when they live in their co-op, their internship, whatever it is, in a real-world setting. So they are in Wall Street, they are here in Chicago, they are in Ohio, in wherever they are. All over the world. We have 3,000 employers in 146 countries, okay? And then you come and you talk about pollution in China or the environment in China. They say, we didn't live it this way. When you talk about the crash, we didn't live it this way. You talk about the needs, we didn't live it this way. They question because essentially they are more aware of the reality. So that's one aspect. They push you. The second thing is that through this, experiential approach, as I said, they understand themselves and they understand others, but also they understand what they don't want to do and what they want to do. So we have students who went to a pharmaceutical company, let's say, a real example, Amgen. They did research there, they loved it, but then the second was in a teaching hospital where they did not only research but with human subjects, and they discovered that their passion is the human subjects. Or others will come and tell you, I want to launch a company, or whatever it is. So they are driving the bus. We're not driving the bus from this perspective. In some ways, what I'm saying is that the world is too interesting to ignore, and therefore, we are not building an environment that is closed. They are bringing the interest of the world to us and to themselves.
And to each other.
And to each other.
Yeah, that the shared learning, the community of learning is so incredible, right? Yeah. We didn't have that down as to talk tonight, but I know what happens when students who have had those types of experiences start talking with other students.
Absolutely.
That's extraordinary learning in that moment.
And also they have their network, their social networks.
Yeah.
Comparing notes, saying, my experience there was not great because of this, my experience there, I got that, what did you get, etc. Absolutely. It's exciting.
It is exciting, yeah.
But it's not easy for us as faculty because they question us.
Yeah, I had one faculty member tell me a couple of years ago that, Joretta, the world has really changed. I used to put, my office hours outside the door, and people would just sign up and come.
Yeah.
And I put my office hours outside, no one comes. And I used to have office hours that would help with the large exam that was going to be the next day or the following morning. And students would come in and say, I had some questions last night, but I took a Khan Academy class, and I'm ready. Right? That our students are not utilizing us in the same way as we were as students, right? those of us who are in the faculty room and
But
teaching.
I think that example that you gave about the Khan Academy is very telling, because they are telling us knowledge is becoming a commodity, and it's a free commodity. So if I go to college, I'm not going to go to college to get the knowledge because I can get it elsewhere.
Right.
It's to get precisely all these elements, of reflection, of interaction, of engagement with each other, with you, with the world. And also, this is an opportunity for us to think about our differentiation. Post-COVID, you asked me when
Yes.
we were on the plane together, post-COVID, it's clear that higher education is going to be transformed. So what is going to happen? First of all, people said it's a demise of the residential model. It's not the case, because even for many colleges and universities that closed, the students rented apartments, that. And in order to be with each other, people need this. So first, the residential model is needed, and we have it. But second, differentiation is going to be key, and value is going to be key. People want to know, why do I go to college X instead of going to college Y? And so it's going to push us to think hard about our differentiation and about the value we provide. That's what makes us attractive. It's not our location. Let me mention something else, very interesting. Many colleges and universities used to define themselves by their campus, correct? So if you think about a college, you say this college is this, and I'm very proud of our campus. I am very proud of our campus and our campuses. But when you close your campus and the university still exists, virtually on a hybrid way, and many of you did, what does it tell us? It tells us that the campus is a manifestation of the university, but it's not the university. And that's an important realization. So, differentiation, value after COVID, and once again, the shift from a teacher-centered to a learner-centered is accelerating. It's going to accelerate. If we think that we are going to have students captive for 4 years, think again. Many colleges and universities are bracing themselves for a possibility where students are starting in one place, spending a year in a different college, or 2 years, and then 2 years with you, and vice versa, for different reasons, not only costs, and different experiences. So that's why it is essential for us to articulate to ourselves our value and our differentiation. There are other aspects that are going, into post-COVID-19, we can discuss them, but please, I don't want to take all the floor because you have many questions and then the audience has questions.
Yeah, I would love to talk more about the value proposition. I think that's a question for all of us, and we're hopeful that it's becoming more clear as we head forward in higher ed. Well, I want to turn us just a bit for a minute, and I can't help it. I'm one of those folks who likes to learn about it, but I like to apply it. So I could be a student at Northeastern, I think, in the experiential education. We have a lot of presidents here, members of cabinets, who would say they have every desire to graduate students who are robot-proof, and who turn back to their culture and say, how do I navigate change in this culture? And so I had shared with you in advance, I would welcome your truth-telling around what is it that you've done to drive the vision for that into your own senior team, into your board of trustees, particularly, let's start with that level of leadership.
Let me start by saying that in general, in higher education, we like consensus too much. We vote too much on everything.
We're streaming.
Yeah,
we're streaming, you know that, okay.
We want to vote on everything. And if we don't have a consensus, then we don't do it. No. We went to academia because we believe in a culture of experimentation, correct? And we believe in academic freedom. Therefore, the way to do it is not to seek consensus. So how do we do it? First of all, suppose that there are projects that are coming from you or coming from the community at large. You can see who the early adopters are, who is interested in that. Because whenever there is a change, what I'm saying is so simplistic. You have early adopters, you have naysayers, and the larger majority is in between. So if you empower the early adopters and you take a back seat, they become the proof that this can work. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. You stop it. Rather than saying, okay, we want to change wholesale, start with this. The third aspect, so no consensus, seek the early adopters, and third, and the literature of change taught in business schools is very clear about that, you need dedicated teams. Everybody is fully employed. We're very, very busy. So if you want to ask somebody to add something else or a group, they won't be able to do it. Give them the opportunity. Give them an incentive. Give them a course off to launch it. Give them a little bit of seed money. In the literature on change, there is a difference between the performance team and the dedicated team. The performance team is charged by keeping the train going, running. And essentially, they are perfecting the 3.5-inch floppy disk. We need that. We're laughing, but at the same time, start looking at the future. Empower people to experiment and test. They succeed, they become the proof, others follow. They don't succeed, you sunset, and you have other things. And that's the beauty. So the change happens when you don't require it as a wholesale approach. We never voted on anything from this perspective.
So the follow-up question here would be, how does governance work with faculty at Northeastern?
Like it works with every university. But the faculty embrace the idea that, yes, we believe in academic freedom. Yes, we believe in culture of experimentation. And then when you do strategic planning, they are working with you on that. So they are owners. The board is an owner too. They are owning that. So if we own the goals, the execution is management. And therefore management has to, if we mandate, it doesn't work. If you show that you can soar with something, let me give you an example that is very old now. But it's telling. When we started talking about online education, we didn't say people should move into online education. We said, who would like to experiment with that? Some other university, very well known, the faculty in arts and sciences voted to forbid any faculty from doing online learning. That's against what? It goes against what? Academic freedom. So we have in our hands the opportunity to innovate as a community.
Will you come and speak at a couple of schools I know? Because I think they've been... Are we streaming in the right places tonight is the question, I think. I so appreciate that transparency. And the idea around not expecting consensus and not waiting for that is such a critical point for us. I had a colleague who talked about some of what we've experienced in these last 18 months of bringing that urgency that we've used to get through C-19 and the integration of problem solving that we have executed on as communities in the last 18 months. If we could live that way as we reemerge, how powerful that could be. And I'd love to hear you talk a little bit about how have you helped Northeastern integrate the work between disciplines, between academics and student affairs, just across the board. Talk a little bit about integration.
For instance, let me start by saying in terms of research, in general, you know that the premium now for funded research is on interdisciplinary research. Right. And also translational research. So that's, by definition, if you want to get funding, that's what you're getting. Mm-hmm. With respect to learning, we have the largest demand for our students coming from, the students who are applying, or the students who are at Northeastern, is for combined majors. Mm-hmm. Combined majors are not double majors, but combined majors. Let me give you an example. Take AI, students studying AI want to study AI and study ethical AI. It's a very hot field now called ethical AI that Silicon Valley is facing, etc., where you have people from philosophy, from law, from business, and with people from faculty from computer science working together on a curriculum and building it. It's needed now. So the fastest growing, we received 75,500 applications. The largest demand is for combined majors. Mm-hmm. We have over 170. Mm-hmm. Why? What does it tell you? It tells you that from a research perspective, people want an interdisciplinary approach. From a learning perspective, people want an interdisciplinary approach. Mm-hmm. So lower the boundaries, and once again, you don't mandate.
Mm. You invite.
You invite. Mm. And people are actually inviting themselves because they are seeing the opportunities and the needs. Mm-hmm. Health informatics, everybody knows about that. Health informatics is going to require multiple disciplines. Mm-hmm. It is requiring multiple disciplines, etc. Mm-hmm.
So before we head into some questions in the room, so get yourselves ready if you would. 2 microphones positioned in the room, and I'm anticipating some folks who will head up to those mics and ask Dr. Aoun a couple of questions. I'd like to hear a little bit about what you've been able to do to provide faculty development. That's such an important part of this. And if you're a member of our audience this evening and feel like I'm weighting things a little bit heavily around the faculty, I'll just hold up in front of you that we are the most important part. I'm putting myself in that category. We are the most important part, and we are the most difficult part to navigate. We are the reason many students' lives are changed when we're in the classroom, and we're also the reason that sometimes we move too slowly. And so this is an avenue for us, I think, in a time of change that could be so helpful. So what have you been doing at Northeastern, and what do you recommend?
Look, first of all, there are clear advances in the learning sciences.
Yeah.
And therefore, we spend a lot of time inviting our faculty to, we have a center on learning, to really get coached, get reskilled in the learning sciences. What are the advances and how does it apply to experiential learning? The other aspects that we have is that in some ways, COVID has been good to higher education, paradoxically, for learning. Because if you look at it, the first phase, we all moved by brute force into online learning. It wasn't well done. The second phase, people started saying, but now that I know more or less the medium, I can start working on it. So we started launching new curricula that are hybrid, where, for instance, one example that for us is how do you integrate a virtual experiential component? Mm-hmm. And so the faculty actually came up with great opportunities where we worked with companies and they defined the problems that the students were working on in a virtual setting too. Mm. So that, you can every crisis provide an opportunity, provides us with an opportunity, and clearly this is the case. Faculty like to tinker and to look at new opportunities. We all give them the opportunity to do it. Sometimes it's a small incentive, whatever it is. A brown bag luncheon. Our idea also was we wanted to provide an opportunity for those who could not be with us because of COVID at all. We opened the university, we didn't close at all. But we knew that there were people who weren't able to be with us. So the question becomes, how can you provide them with an experience that is commensurate with the classroom experience and not be isolated? So first we worked together, we started by rewiring and having high def in the classrooms. But it wasn't enough. We had to rethink, the interaction with, because they are outside the classroom, but they can see everybody can see them well. That's high def, that's great. But, what happens when you are in a different time zone? So it moved us to do things in a synchronous way and asynchronous way. Then what do you do when you are in an asynchronous way? How can you create an interaction? The solutions came from the faculty. We didn't know.
Yeah, a gift of the pandemic, I guess, in
Yeah.
a way.
Yeah.
Some of that urgency. So I'm going to invite folks to step up to the mic with some questions that you might have for Dr. Aoun. I'm seeing a colleague headed that direction. I have a couple in the background here, as we get started. Would you introduce yourself? Tell us who you are and where you're from. That'd be great.
Absolutely. I'm Tarita Johnson. I'm from Calvin University in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and I'm the director of the Career Center there, and I am fascinated by what you've presented today, and I'm interested in knowing if you could talk about that partnership that you started with employers, to merge any competency areas that they don't have. So for instance, I've also worked in the talent acquisition space, and I know that there's some skill sets that sometimes employers are like, we just cannot find the talent. I believe you have the solution by actually looking at the talent that you already have and giving them the competency. So if you could just describe to us, how did you start that blending and get that merge between your campus and different employers?
Yeah. Thank you for the question. If you want, I'm going to artificially divide the interaction with employers at two levels. One is, if you want, with the traditional 18 to 22, the undergraduates. And then second is more the lifelong learning, namely the B2B, business-to-business learning, or B2C, business to individual learning that can happen at a later stage. Now, the employers, we work closely with our employers every year. We add employers, we remove employers, but essentially, without boring you with all the details, the students apply for a co-op when they go for an internship. And before they go, we help them understand the company. We help them understand themselves and how to interview, etc. If they get it, okay, then once inside, they have a mentor, and then when they come back, we integrate that in the classroom. We integrate the learning. That allows the company to tell us exactly how they are faring, and for them to also understand whether their experience has been a valuable experience. So essentially, you build a partnership from day one. They assume responsibility with you of the young minds. And it's good for them, it's not charity, because they start looking at them and they see whether there is a fit. The overwhelming majority of our students get 2 or 3 offers from co-op employers before they leave. By the time they leave, they have a choice. So that's good, okay? That's fine. Now, the second, with respect to people who are in the workplace already, employers are very good at telling you, what they need. For instance, we have a need for advanced manufacturing, advanced nano manufacturing. And we cannot afford to send them to you. It's over. So can you embed programs with us? And those programs are experiential because they are working on projects like that. I give you an example of the computer science, the Align, or the digital transformation, digital literacy. So they are the first, when they work with undergrads, they are looking for talent, and they are co-shaping the talent with you. Whereas when they are working with you on lifelong learning, they are looking at reinvention, reskilling, upskilling, which is very different. And they tell you exactly where the needs are.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I'd love to hear you chat just about a couple of things while I see if there's anyone else who has some questions this evening. One of those is what we know to happen in higher ed is happening in other sectors as well, that we're starting to see this separation of those who are privileged and can do the kind of both affordability as well as have the access that's needed, and those who are not having those same opportunities. I'd love to hear you talk a little bit about how the intentionality around inclusion as you think about the model that you're developing.
Inclusion with respect to
Opportunity.
Opportunities.
Yeah.
Let me mention something. First of all, the alliance is very important because essentially what you are doing is that you are pooling your resources and your intellectual capital to think about the future. No university, no college is self-sufficient, no matter how wealthy, how large, how comprehensive they are. Don't think they are. We're a very, comprehensive university. No university, no college can tell you, I am self-sufficient. So essentially, you need partnerships. So where do you look at partnerships? You look at partnerships with each other, and we look at partnerships with the real world, with the employers. And those are the opportunities. Now, since you're pulling them together through the alliance, you are magnifying. Suppose now, tomorrow morning, you decide to go into lifelong learning. Okay? It will not be feasible for every institution to do it together by yourself. But it will be very feasible if you decide to create a network. Because what we have done, for instance, at Northeastern is create a network of campuses where we can be available for our learners. You have the network already. You're the third largest, correct? So you can decide, and then you can do it in a differentiated way. That's the second thing. And so similarly, with respect to inclusion, at all levels, race, ethnicity, gender, etc., we have to start thinking about it with respect to what we can do together, and not in isolation. And that, we have programs where we are trying to take advantage of the environment we are in. Boston is very rich in terms of higher education, but that's not the only environment. We are in other places. We're in Charlotte, we are in Seattle, we are Silicon Valley, where diversity expresses itself differently with the First Nations in Toronto and in Vancouver. So I give you an example of inclusivity. When we started this Align program with computer science and we realized that women and people of color and underrepresented minorities started now getting into the tech field, converting into the tech field, that's inclusivity. But we didn't do it on our own. They want that, and you want that. We can do it together. So that's...
Through partnerships.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. You mentioned today that you are in the throes of thinking about what might be next in terms of ideas in a book, and I wondered if we could close with you sharing some of what's keeping
Yeah.
you awake at night a little bit.
Nothing keeps me awake at night. I want to be able to sleep well, especially tonight in this beautiful setting. Look, what I described to you at the beginning is human-machine interaction and human interaction. That's a humanics. Understand machines and understand people, and understand what people can do that machines cannot. But this is mediated, and we were talking about it, Andy, a little bit also. This is mediated in a context. It doesn't happen by itself. So if you want to study the environment, for instance, you cannot study the environment in abstracto. You have to study the environment in a specific setting. In an environment where you have desertification, or the environment where, on the other hand, you're quite the opposite. You have ice melting, etc. And this leads you to understanding the world in a contextual way. Mm-hmm. So what we have done here so far is, for instance, at Northeastern, is to say, okay, you have your curricula, and then afterwards you go to co-ops, up to 2 co-ops, or more if you want, and then your co-ops are going to allow you to test yourself, test your knowledge, and refine it, etc. There is a different approach. A different approach starts with the context from day one, and to define the context that you want to navigate your learning and your discovery and your experiential. And based on that, you can start learning. Let me give you a real example in a real life. I'm a linguist. I do mathematical modeling, formal linguistics of natural languages. I received a call one day from somebody I knew who, that was maybe 10, 12 years ago, before machine learning became big, who started a company, a young fellow, started a company, and they wanted to do searches in a new way to go against Google. And the person needed knowledge of linguistics. So the person came, and his team started asking me to give them the knowledge that will be relevant and pertinent for them. And based on that, they started building their knowledge. It's like, because they defined, I need a new search engine that will integrate semantic search, that will integrate various aspects of search. Give us that. And little by little, they went deep. By the end, they were as proficient as somebody who had a diploma in linguistics. Not an advanced diploma, because otherwise I'd be irrelevant. I'd be irrelevant. But that's the idea. So the idea starts by defining the domains, challenges, opportunities. I mean, look, it's easy. You want to build a car. Give an example. Suppose you want to build a car. A self-driving car. You need all the aspects, from mechanics to IT to now the human factor. Okay, and et cetera, then you get your humanics. Okay, so that's the transformation. Sorry.
A question. Fabulous. Please introduce yourself.
Hi. Too tall for this thing, sorry. My name's Seth Bushhouse. I'm from Gentex Corporation. We're an electronics manufacturer in Zeeland, Michigan. My question's about your thoughts on the differentiated value of bachelor's or associate's degrees or certifications, especially when you think of employers who are looking for speed to readiness for the workforce.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Great question.
Look, let me tell you, allow me to start with an example. We are now in Portland, Maine, because we received a very large investment from a person in, $100 million. Dave Rue, one of the founders of private equity in Silicon Valley, and another 100 from a foundation, Alfond Foundation there. But their model was different. Their model was, and I'll get to your question through that, Portland Maine was not poised for the future. And and what's the future is going to be for them in IT, AI, and life sciences. So they ask us essentially to provide, to build a campus based on lifelong learning in these domains. We said we will do it only if the companies are with us from day one. And they define, and we have now, after 16 months, 45 companies. Now, why am I mentioning that? Mentioning that when we work with the companies, they're not interested in the degree. Okay? They're interested in the competence. I need to recruit people who understand X, or I need to reskill the people I have or upskill them in Y. Okay? So that's one side. Now you say to me, okay, I see you were agreeing, but also the companies, that's the beauty of being in touch with employers. Remember at some point there were things called coding academies that became very successful at the beginning, and they more or less crashed, where they said to people, come, spend 6 months with us, get a coding degree, and when you finish, you get $85,000. You heard about them. And they were very successful. So the employers at the beginning started taking them, but then the employers said to us, well, we are not going to recruit them from these places. And we said, why? Because they said they can do coding, but they cannot do more. The employers look at a talent as an investment, going back to your question. It's an investment. And I am investing in talent. Therefore, I want to groom the talent and to be with me, not only for one task. And therefore, what we are doing now with the employers is looking at how we build a journey for the talent. But the journey is not about a degree, okay? For individuals, a degree is important. But for an employer, a degree is not important. Does it make sense? So that's why when we work with, let's say, with companies and employers on digital transformation, on big data, or whatever it is, they are interested in getting the competence, those certificates, stackable certificates. That's what they want. They're not looking for the degree. Okay? And what's interesting is they're looking for a journey, namely, that will be the first step, but we want to keep these. And we are keeping the talent by allowing the talent to grow with us. And that's your function as a college or university. Okay?
Well, there are, one more question from
I'm going to
Dr.
just
Novak.
build on that. My name is Amy Novak. I serve as the president at Dakota Wesleyan University in a rural area. We've been seeing many of our students and many of the region that is not terribly educated. We see post-secondary rates below 20%. So we are building certificate programs and to degrees, right, to the associate degree and to the bachelor's degree. For many of those students, just to get the first certificate is huge, and we're building it in collaboration with rural employers. Yeah. We're running into challenges both in the financial aid system and in the accreditation system about how our institutions are evaluated based on IPEDS reporting and a whole host of other things that say the degree must be completed in this time frame. As you think about the comments that we're hearing about whether or not the degree is as valuable as it once was, it gives me pause to say groups like this must come together to lobby policymakers and accrediting bodies to reconsider how they evaluate our outcomes. because the young woman who's coming off a reservation in rural South Dakota who just gets 9 credits and then 9 more credits toward those certificates is making progress, is employed, but may not be doing it in the framework that we've created.
You're absolutely right. If I may, very quickly, for instance, certain number of colleges and universities got together in Washington with various organizations, including ACE, etc., to say that, for instance, all the work-study programs that are not supported by financial aid in the summer should be supported, and we got it. Right. We got it, and you're absolutely right. It's up to us to push for that. Mm-hmm. But let me close on a very quick note and allow me that we have a social compact with society. We have here not-for-profits, and we are not-for-profits because we entered in a social compact with society where we said we are going to train the talent, to educate the talent of the future, the talent you need. And during this period of COVID, we are training the talent, and also we are, for universities that are involved in research, we are also providing the solution. This social compact has to be rediscovered constantly by us, because we cannot take it for granted. Even when you think about the fact that we don't pay taxes. Why is it the case that society has chosen to do that for us and with us? Because we are preparing the talent of the future. So our centrality, even throughout COVID and post-COVID, has been reaffirmed. And it's up to us to show the world that we are delivering, and we can deliver. And that's why you gather here. That's why we all gather. Because we don't have the answers, but we know that together we can provide a map for the future, a roadmap for the future. So thank you all for being here. Thank you for inviting me. And thank you, Joretta. Thank you.
You can stay right there.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
So I'm just going to keep him here on the stage, and I'm sure there will be some questions for him afterwards, and you might want to say hello as well. But on behalf of the Michigan Colleges Alliance, thank you so much for your patience this evening. It's time for dinner. And that takes place down in the dining hall. Those are our instructions. And the next time we'll see you officially together will be tomorrow morning in this same room at 8:30. Where we'll begin with Andy and have so much prepared. Thank you so much for being with us. Will you give him another round of applause, please?
Thank you, Joretta. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.